I'm Adam from Army Painter, and today we're going to teach you how to paint red. Evan from the Facing the Gray Tide podcast wrote in asking how to paint red power armor quickly. He's got an event coming up. So after priming our models with our color primer spray Chaotic Red, we're going to show you how the Warpaints work through an airbrush. We're also going to show you how quickly we can paint an entire squad using this method. So we have a unit of soldiers here and a few character models that we'll showcase in this tutorial. Now, an airbrush isn't exactly required to paint red. You can achieve very similar results using the dry brushing technique or even other blending techniques. But since Evan needs these models painted fast, and since red and yellows tend to have very weak pigments, we thought we'd give it a try in this tutorial. We're starting with the Chaotic Red base, and we've gone ahead and mixed a little bit of water, a little bit of Warpaints mixing medium, and some Dragon Red. This will be a nice gradual highlight to pop off that Chaotic Red. Now, we're going to focus the airbrush from the top down at like a 45-degree angle to bring up some really nice highlights here. So we're going to get right to it. And as you can see already on that shoulder pad, we've got a nice little gradient going on there. This is how we paint red really quickly. As you can see here, we've done the same thing on our, I guess you call this a lieutenant model, a sergeant. He's got a nice big power sword and a crown on his helmet. And you can see the red gradients really pop off there. It's a really, really nice effect. Since we started with such a dark red, almost a dark brown with Chaotic Red, we worked our way up to Dragon Red. Because red is such a weak pigment, it would take several layers to achieve the Mars red that we want to for the final step. So I'm going to take you on a little path here and show you a shortcut. What I like to do is take a fleshy color like Elven Flesh, as we're using here, and just take a little bit and focus on the very highest areas where the sun and light source would hit. We're just going to go in real gently with that over those areas. Now, it might look a little weird right now, but remember, this is a pre-highlight. So just bear with me. And that's about all you need right there. We're going to move on to our sergeant model. So very lightly, just in the very most raised edges, like the kneecap there, the tops of the boots. Wherever the sun will most naturally hit, or the light source. And there you go. Now with our Mars red mixed into our airbrush, we're going to go back over top all of those raised areas that we pre-highlighted with the Elven Flesh. And you're just going to try to blend that back in to our Dragon Red and Chaotic Red. So very simply, this is probably the easiest step other than priming the model. We're just going to go right out over top with that Mars red. And with very little effort, you can see that gradient and the definition pop. Just wait until we get the quick shade washes on here. All right, we'll go back to that Sergeant model one more time. And there you have it. We're finished with the airbrushing stage. We're going to get on to the washing stage next. But in the meantime, while I finish the rest of the squad through the airbrush, why don't you take a look at the models? Now that we've achieved a smooth red base coat, it's time to move on to the washing stage. And for this, we're going to be using Quickshade Red Tone and our monster brush. Just going to pour quite a bit of the Quickshade Red Tone. And this is a great tone for working with reds, obviously, as the name implies. I'm going to load up our monster brush. This is a great brush for this, for washing especially. Load up the brush with plenty of paint. And then working from the top down, I'm just going to apply this all over the model, starting with the head, as you can see here. Making sure that it doesn't pool up. If it does begin to pool like you see here, just take your brush and push it around a bit. Now if you find that the red tone is too dark for you, you can go ahead and just mix in a few drops of the Quickshade mixing medium, and that'll help lighten it up a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and do this and repeat this process throughout the whole of the model, like so. Now on the shoulder pads, you want to be careful that you have smooth application and even coverage. So like I said, from the top down, and just pull the wash into the recesses there. With the wash now dry, it's time to move on to the highlighting stage of this tutorial. And when you highlight the model, you're just going to focus on the most raised edges of the model to reinforce and make that red really stand out. And for this stage, we're going to be using Mars Red from the Warpaints range and our Masterclass Kolinsky Sable brush. With the washes dry, we're going to go ahead and go about picking out the highlights on the model. You can see that the red tone darkened the model down, while it did make the 3D aspects of the model more defined. I'm using our Masterclass Kolinsky brush here. We're going to thin down the paint just a little bit. When you find a nice edge on the model, I'm just going to trace our highlight across using the edge of the brush as you see here. You're definitely going to want thin down paints here for more control, and our Warpaints thin down really nicely with water, as you can see here on my palette. I actually made this palette using the blister packaging from an old Battlefield's Tuft box. We love the earth here at the Army Painter, so it's always good to recycle when you can. We're going to go ahead and repeat this highlighting process across the rest of the model here. There's a couple key areas that you'll want to focus on, like right here on the chest plate. This is a great spot to highlight as it helps to even further define the shape of the model, and because we thin down our paints, this highlight will go on very smoothly. This is really simple. You just need a steady hand and a bit of patience, and you pick out the areas of the model that are most important, that will draw the most attention. When you do that, you'll really make the red pop off the model. Now, red is a fairly translucent color as it has weaker pigments, as we mentioned earlier in this tutorial. So in some areas, you may want to reinforce that highlight with a second layer. Don't be afraid to take your time here. With the highlighting complete, all of the red power armor is now finished, and you can see that with a few simple techniques, painting red is really quite easy. I've gone ahead and painted the remaining parts of the model, and in only a day or two, we have a beautiful auxiliary force to add to our larger army collection. So there you have it, Evan. That concludes our How to Paint Red tutorial. Remember that you can find all of the products used in this tutorial at your friendly local game store or at www.thearmypainter.com. Remember, we love to see your painting projects, so be sure to share yours by tagging us at The Army Painter on Facebook and Instagram.